Welcome, ladies and gentle peoples, to another edition of the Channel Zavox Ship Guide Solo PvP discussion thingy. Today we're going to have a quick peek at the Moa, a slow as balls T1 Caldari cruiser with potentially insane damage and solid tank due to its hybrid damage and shield resist bonuses. As always, this guide will focus on the ship's strengths and weaknesses in the context of solo nullsec PvP. The fits described in this video are linked in the description below. You can copy paste the raw text directly into Eve, Python or other fitting tools. I'll also link previous videos of mine highlighting the Moa for you to check out if you like. The Moa is a really understated ship and one of my favourite Tech 1 cruisers, capable of over 650 DPS while still fitting a very solid tank and plenty of control thanks to its 5 mid slots. It can thrash plenty of Tech 1 and faction cruisers provided it can get into range, which unfortunately is practically fucking zero. It has other shortcomings too. It's unbelievably slow, it's hard countered by newts, but don't let these worry you. It makes up for these by being so engageable, everyone thinks it's far worse than it actually is, so you can get insane kills when crazy ass pilots with bling go batshit and think they can outbrawl you. It's also a really simple ship to fly. Use heat liberally on your prop and tackle to get into range as quickly as possible and start applying insane blaster DPS directly to your opponent's brain. The Moa is not a very flexible hull in terms of fitting for solo roaming. You could go for a kitey rail Moa if you want, but you have far better options like the Caracal, Stabber or Thorax that are much faster and more aligned to this role. I feel as though the shield tanked Blaster Moa is definitely the way to go. However, even within this limitation, there's still a few different options. We'll look at the buffer fit and a couple of XLASB versions. First up, the most simple Simon brawling Moa in existence, Blasters with a shield buffer. This fit gets around 620 DPS with Antimatter and over 680 with Void. It gets a respectable 35.5k EHP, but has a top speed of just 2.25 kilometers a second heated and a 5.8 second align time. That's with the micro warp off. This is clearly beyond atrocious, but you might be surprised how many people will just come in and expect to outbrawl you. To get all this, we use ion blasters, micro warp, double large shield extender, scram and web. We use a damage control and triple mag stab, topped off with double extender rigs and an anti-EM rig. Be sure to bring Antimatter, Void and Null, and flavour your light drones to taste. I prefer Acolytes or Warriors to deal with kitey frigs and complement our Kintherm blaster damage. This fit costs around 45 mil total, but we can reduce this if needed by dropping the micro warp and tackle to lower meta levels, and by using just Tech 1 rigs. This drops the cost down to around 35 mil. This fit's not tied on PG or CPU at all and can be used without any implants even if your fitting skills aren't great. Be sure to bring an anti-Pharmacon Ayakira for extra deeps versus the Frigate Menace. Again, flying this ship is super easy. Get into scram range as your top priority, meaning overheat, microwarp, preheat and spam tackle, and once tackled, proceed to melt face whilst managing your heat and range. Generally, you want to be minimizing transversal when shooting small and fast targets by manually piloting directly away or using keep at range, set to around 4 or 5 kilometers, but watch out for the death spiral. Manually piloting is a much more reliable option. You can orbit larger targets to try and get under their guns, but this ship is too slow and big for this to be of much use most of the time. Ammunition wise, in general, use Void against slow or big targets and when within 4 kilometers. Use Null if your opponent's beyond 4 kilometers, and Antimatter everywhere else. The second fit we'll look at is an XLASB twin web variant. This fit is substantially tankier provided it can fully unload the ASB and has better control and application with the double web, but doesn't have the same raw damage or projection as the buffer version. This fit gets about 590 DPS with Antimatter, 14.4k EHP plus another 28k EHP from the XLASB, assuming you don't overboost and are able to unload the entire clip, giving us a total of about 42k EHP. That's about 20% more than the buffer version. Mobility stats are identical to the buffer version, although it has a smaller sig radius. And to get all this, we use Electron Blasters, XLASB, Micro Warp, Dual Web and a Scram. We use damage control, double mag stab and a diode coprocessor, topped off with EM and thermal resist rigs and a Tech 2 DPS rig. Lately I've actually been using a slightly less tanky version but with ion blasters. I won't go into the details here as it's very similar, but I'll link this variant also in the description below. This fit costs less than 40 mil, and as shown needs a 2% power grid implant worth about 5 mil, although you can get rid of this by dropping the Tech 2 DPS rig for a tank rig. Also, always use a blue pill with this fit to get the most out of your XLASB, and always preheat before you cycle it. These boosters don't generate much heat, but give a pretty substantial bonus to both duration and boost amount when heated, so always preheat. In closing, this ship is super simple to fly, has a superb combination of DPS, tank, and engageability, but is very slow for a Tech 1 cruiser, and when combined with its small drone bay, makes it very vulnerable to kiting setups. Both of these fits can deliver surprisingly solid results. Hope you enjoy. Fly dangerous.